So what else can you do to spark your super bloom season? You and continue it, to live it, to upward spiral for the rest of your life. I want to invite you to step into what I'm calling the great recalibration. All right. You've heard about the Great Reset. There was this like global spiritual crisis. I ran a whole study on it during the quarantines in COVID. People all over the world started to reflect on like, hey, am I good with this life I've been living? Maybe I'm not. All right. And then as a result, we had the Great Resignation where 50 million people quit their jobs. And we're just like, you know what? Nope. I no longer participate in this, whatever this is. And I think these two movements have paved the way for this next movement, which I think is more than a movement. It's really a stage of human evolution. And I'm calling it the Great Recalibration. Okay. And it's happening right now, and it's happening on macro and micro levels. On the macro level, you're seeing it. You're seeing all these binaries dissolving as the human brain gets more connected with spirit, and we realize all these binary constructs were truly like just the figments of a primitive human brain. All right. And all the toxic institutions are also in this process of being demolished and being remodeled. You're seeing all the fear-based power and control structures just being like, they're fighting. They're trying to fight to stay alive, but they will be leveled. It is inevitable. Okay. That is fact. So as that all happens on more of a micro level, it's making way for us to live in a new definition of success. All right. So whatever you've been taught success was historically was usually a program that was wired in by these toxic institutions to make money or to control a lot of people. And they did that by conditioning us to think we weren't okay in our own skin or in our lives unless we hit their success metrics, right? Or their perfect version of perfect performance, or, looked a certain way, or had a certain skin color, or were certain size or smaller, or lived in a certain part of town, right? So anytime you hear of success as equated with a number, like how much money you have, income, revenue generated, a title in a company, age, thinness, skin color, getting married and having children, buying a house, those things are not really success. Okay. Success is comprised of two components and two components only. And this is a write it down moment if you're a note taker. All right. You deeply know and deeply love your true sacred self. And I'm talking about your unique spirit, personality, likes, dislikes, genius, gifts, dreams, desires, wiring, your design, your shadows too, all the parts of yourself you've been hiding and holding back. Okay. And you create a whole life that is congruent with your true sacred self. It's and love yourself. You create a life that's congruent with yourself. And congruent doesn't mean just you outsource the shit you don't like to do or you're bad at, and you just only live in what you think your strengths are. No, congruent means your whole life accommodates who you really are. Right? Okay, so I call this the alignment first principle. It's a new paradigm of radical commitment to radical self-acceptance and a radical commitment to alignment as our new metric of success. And so I'm calling this era the Great Recalibration. All right. And I'm talking about like snowballing momentum of awakening and adopting this alignment first principle. So we're shedding those played out old cultural nonsense programs that have had us living on this treadmill, checking the boxes of what other people think is success for so long. The Great Recalibration is on now. And the fact that you're here right now suggests that you might be on the leading edge of this movement. All right. Know and love your true self. Create a life that's congruent with your true self. That's all there is. All right. And to do that, you have to recalibrate. So the third way that you can start to live your super bloom season is to use a method, a process. I have one. We call it the self-mastery method when we're talking about doing it in our lives. We call it the align to millions method when we talk about doing it in our business. But the method is the same 3 steps. Recalibrate first, then actualize, then align. What living this new success requires, it requires you to shed a lot of that shit that no longer serves you. It requires you to shed your conditioned fear programs and thought habits and the ways of being, playing small and apologizing for who you are. It requires you to shed the fear that if you're not perfectly performing and producing all the time, that unwanted things will happen to you. Okay. It requires you to step gradually into more of a total trust paradigm where you're like, you know what? Things work out for me. Everything is always working out for me, even when things don't go the way that I wanted them to go. Like divine order is real. Divine timing is real. It requires you to step into a total trust paradigm where you start allowing yourself to want what you really want, especially if it's big or if it seems hard, especially if you don't yet believe that you can have it. Okay. And we all have remnants of that. I have remnants of that I see and call out every day. Okay. So know that until you start allowing your true self to want what you want and pursue what you really want, you just will feel the disharmony. You will feel like you're living a shadow of the life you were born to live. And when you start allowing your true self to want what you really want and stepping into it, it will start to feel like you're on a living spree. You have it, right? This is not just about the achievement. That's a moment in time. It's about the feeling of self-respect and worthiness and passion and electricity that you live in. That's Superbloom, okay? That you live in when you are orienting your life around this alignment first principle, that your job is not to impress anybody or do what your grandmama wanted you to do. Your job is to know and love your true self and create a life that's congruent with that. All right. So in our method, it's, recalibrate, actualize, align. The first big recalibration is the great recalibration. All right. It's to decide to recalibrate your definition of what it even means to be human, right? What it even means to be you. And then, if you do this work with us at Soul Tour, you do it and we teach you along the way how to wake up from your core trance, how to recalibrate your nervous system with daily ritual, how to recalibrate your belief systems using the laws of the universe to learn how creation really happens, how to dissolve your money blocks with the sacred money archetypes. Actualize is not always fun, to be clear. It's kind of like the excessive rain. When the rain starts coming in, this year I got a roof leak and a basement leak. Okay. Sometimes there are costs and consequences of rain. Like when you start pouring into yourself with healing resources and therapy and coaching, alignment starts to happen, and everything that's not in alignment in your life, things will start to get uncomfortable. Things will start to fall apart. There are some relationship patterns that will fall apart. There are some relationships that will fall apart. Some people don't want you to change, period, right? You'll feel adrifted sometimes when you're really just untethered, right? So you have to know that this level of radical liberation is a luxury, and it's also a challenge because there's no checklist. There's no one else is going to tell you what to do with your life when you are radically liberated. All right. And that can be so it's really disorienting to follow your inner guidance if you aren't used to following it. It's really disorienting to let yourself want what you really want if you haven't been doing that. And it's really disorienting to start getting what you want if you haven't been getting what you want. All right. So you'll see in the actualized stage where we start to do the work of like, okay, asking ourselves, what do I really want if I'm not going to be on that track? Who am I really? Right? Actualizes when we start learning our human design, learning our true self. Very common in this stage for old goals to just dissolve and drop off because you don't want that shit anymore. You never really did. That's why you weren't achieving them. Let's be real. And new goals, new vision will start to drop in. Some of you know the story of how we ended up on this Portugal track. Like the beginning of the pandemic, I got this real clear download in my daily ritual, the same one I teach you guys. Farm by the beach. And so we went up and rented a farm by the beach for a couple months. And then we just started this process of adding to the checklist of what I really wanted at true self level. Farm by the beach with good internet, with good roads, with sexy people and restaurants and near a world-class city and, with some Black people around and progressive school, all of this stuff. All right. So your human design and your archetypes help you start to tune in to what you really want. And then align. And let's see. So, I do have a slide for that. Let's see if it works that way. Okay, so that's the method. And step 3 is align. There's an order to this. I'm just going to forward through that. Okay, so there. So step 3 is align, and step 3 is usually where people start. If they're not doing work with Soul Tour, people usually start at alignment. They start trying to take action. Okay. And the shit hits the fan real fast. If you ever set a goal and just started trying to do this stuff without doing any little like inner preparation or self-actualization work, usually what will happen is really rapidly people hit their upper limits. That's why people have this pattern of they set a goal and then they have like a honeymoon period with it for a couple weeks and then they never actually move forward to it. If that sounds familiar to you at all, it's because alignment, taking action without recalibrating and actualizing first, almost always causes the shit to hit the fan. Okay. Because because the goal you're setting is from a conditioned place, not the recalibrated true self place. Right. And because your nervous system is in such reactive mode, because that's how this world makes people be. So in the alignment stage, we start to take inspired action to bring all of these things in alignment, to bring our actual spiritual values, our true sacred self-identity, our newly wired, freshly upgraded beliefs, the decisions that we're making, our dream desired outcomes, the actions we're taking, and our systems and environments, including relationships, all into alignment. Okay. The alignment stage at Soul Tour is where you also start learning. You learn some skills. You get some skills, you get some strategies for moving forward. We do implementation challenges together. You'll learn about what divine right timing is and how to line up to it. You'll learn how to practice creation, manifestation, and attraction. And these processes are gradual. They are, but they super work. Generally, when we talk to people, even actually, we usually do a 30-day survey in programs. We haven't been doing that lately, but the data is off the charts. 80% of people find themselves taking more action on their inspired ideas than they were before after 30 days in life and self-mastery in particular. So there are 2 quotes I just want to share with you as I wind this piece up that kind of give you a sense for what your next season can be like. The first one is from Eric Butterworth's book, The Power Within You. I think that's the book. Maya Angelou wrote the foreword to it because Eric Butterworth was one of her spiritual teachers. It's very, very worth reading. The Power Within You by Eric Butterworth. And there's a quote in there. He says, "A traveler in ancient Greece had lost his way and seeking to find it, asked directions from a man by the roadside who turned out to be Socrates. 'How can I reach Mount Olympus?' asked the traveler. To this, Socrates is said to have gravely replied, 'Just make sure every step you take goes in that direction.'" All right. This is what the power of alignment. It helps you make sure all of your steps go in the direction of your dreams. All right. And then I love this quote by Thoreau. This is a lot of old white guy quotes. I try not to load them up together all like that, but that's just what it was. He wrote that if one advances confidently in the direction of her dreams and endeavors to live the life which she has imagined, she will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. She will put some things behind, will pass invisible boundaries. New, universal, more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within her. Or the old laws will be expanded and interpreted in her favor in a more liberal sense. And she will live with, and this is one of my favorite phrases right now, the license of a higher order of beings. That's Superbloom season, where you stand in your power, you move in the world differently, you live with the license of a higher order of beings because that's what you always were. This is what life mastery does. This is what self mastery does. This is what money mastery does. It recalibrates your nervous system. It recalibrates your belief system. It recalibrates your understanding of the whole goal of this whole life thing. It wakes you up from your core trance and starts to let a wild, like Technicolor new vision for your life start to drop in and download in.